Okay.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, how are you?
Hello, hello.
I, I wanted to do a round table so everybody could tell what you do and how you do it because it seems like everybody had their credentials was like, oh my gosh, it's so everybody's doing so much, and I said I will probably mess it up if I try to tell what everybody does. So I'm actually right now I'm posting this to Facebook, so bear with me. So it's broadcasting. Okay. Can everybody see me?
Yes, thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So first, I want to thank everybody for making time out of your busy day. I know everybody's busy. Everybody has a lot going on, so I appreciate everybody being here. My name is Georgette Dilworth, and I am a CEO for a nonprofit mental health awareness, resources, homelessness, and I also have a recovery channel on Amazon Fire TV. So I know there's a lot going on right in the world, and I wanted to discuss some things that I or could be solutions, and bring together some top people, all of you, so that we can discuss some important things that I feel are pressing right now. So I want to start with Jasmine, if you can, Mayor Jasmine Gore, tell a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you for inviting me to participate in this. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. And I usually say this since I'm at home now. I have two large dogs and they're in their playing, so if you hear them bark periodically, sorry.
It's okay.
um, I represent Ward 4 for the city of Hopewell, Virginia, and so I'm participating as the counselor, not the mayor for the city, just to make sure people separate the two. Um, I've served on city council for 8 years, and I graduated from VCU with a degree in political science and a degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. So definitely have a science background. The daughter of two Army veterans, and I currently work for the Virginia Department of Veteran Services, and I'm just here to try to do whatever I can to have a conversation. Huge supporter and advocate of the National League of Cities, which brings together local elected officials from across the country. And so there might be some resources there that people can pick up and use during this time as well. They're doing webinars and other sending out information about what localities are doing to address their different needs.
Timothy?
Thank you.
My name is Tim Stewart, aka Talk Man Talk, speaking to inspire. And thank you, Georgette, for welcoming me and inviting me to the call. These are the type of platforms I was born for. I live for this. Um, uh, as I said, I'm a motivational speaker and life coach, and I do have quite a bit going on, but this is priority for me to have these kind of conversations. My background is I'm a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. Um, I attended NYU for marketing, business marketing. I primarily spent the majority of my professional career in corporate America, but I've also graduated from a school of hard knocks.
Okay.
16 years clean and sober. Writing, I'm an author. I'm getting ready to release my first book called Free Yourself from Yourself. That's coming in July. I finally got the manuscript done for that. And I've created a vision called T-Bar, which stands for the Black American Revolution, Time to Raise the Bar. And I'll talk more about that as we get into the questions, but that's just a little bit background for me. I'm a country boy. I grew up on a 500-acre farm, and I've had a chance to travel around the world, and now it's my time to give back what has been given to me.
All right. Thank you.
All
Sean?
right. Okay. As I'm Sean Harris, I'm the CEO of Thousandfold Capital and six other corporations. Originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Like Tim, I have an Air Force background as well in aerospace propulsion and aeronautics. Uh, and my main platform is creating generational wealth. I'm a 28-time author. As I said, I do hail from a long lineage of entrepreneurs here in Atlanta. My great aunt and uncle actually owned one of the first African American owned hotels here in Atlanta, and just kind of continue trickling from generation to generation. I am a global speaker. I speak around the world when it comes to finances and wealth creation. So I'm excited to be here on the platform. Georgette, thank you for having me take part with you guys.
Thank you. Troy, and I wanted to, I have one person still trying to get in, so if you see me looking down, I'm trying to help them get in. That's, Troy?
It's my turn.
Yeah.
My name is Troy Campbell, and I am very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation to join this forum. I am a third generation Army veteran, and I originally am from just outside of Los Angeles, California. I currently live in New Mexico, where I am so happy to be away from all the craziness that's going on right now, being in a rural area. Um, my undergrad degree is in criminal justice studies. I have a master's degree in forensic psychology and also a master's degree in social work. I am a behavioral health therapist working at a federally qualified health center, working with the primary care docs there. And I'm also the owner of Time for Change Wellness Solutions. Basically, the focus of that organization is to try to do things differently to address the problems in this community because we've been doing it wrong all this time. So my focus is trying to build capacity and education in the community to try to build a better future for everyone, not just our people. And like I said, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Leslie? Leslie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Leslie McCrae. Georgette is my baby sister, and I work with her with I Rise Up. I'm the vice president of administration and management, so I do most of her ads. I'm also a wife of a 20-year vet from the United States Marine Corps. Hoorah. And there's a lot of stuff going on right now that has me very concerned. And I thank Georgette for inviting me also to the forum and just kind of like to hear what everybody's got on their mind.
Okay. And it looks
Thank you.
like, I think Jasmine may, hold on, we got one person locked out. I'm gonna go ahead and start one of the questions. I have one gentleman, I'm still trying to help him get online. One of the reasons I wanted to hold this is because, like Leslie said, there are a lot of things going on, and people are always talking about what can they do, how can they make change, and it's like if we never ever have these type of conversations, it's kind of hard to get to where we want to get to. So I'm hoping that we can come up with solutions to some of the crisis that is going on right now. So you guys ready for the hard questions? The first one is going to be for Troy and Sean. Do you have any ideas on virtual protesting as opposed to crowds protesting during COVID-19 pandemic? And I guess, Sean, we can start with you. And I'm still trying to help someone get online.
Gotcha. Well, protesting can be looked at in various ways. I just had a conversation just a little while ago with a young lady, and she was telling me how she's not mad at the younger generation right now for whatever way they're acting out their frustrations, because in our generation, we've always heard just pray about it. We sing songs and kumbaya. So as it relates to that particular generation, I think that virtual could be an effective source. But one of my number one platforms with that would be is we have to have economic change, because you don't have true power until you have economic power. What is economic power? Economic power is when you sign the front of your check as well as the back of the check. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. You know, I think everyone's shifting to this thing that I think Killer Mike and T.I. is talking about as far as boycotting for July the 7th. Well, that's almost 6 weeks away. And just one day of boycotting, again, we have to understand the effectiveness or the lack of effectiveness when it comes to boycotting. It's like if we wait until July the 7th just to do that for one day, what impact does that really make? You know, you guys remember about a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever, when Gucci was having their faux pas, if you will, with the African American community, and everyone said, we're going to stop buying Gucci. Well, that only lasted for 3 weeks, okay? But Gucci continued moving. So what I think as a community we have to hone in on is to have the ability to be able to participate in group economics. And that means just support our community from the very beginning, because every community has what's called an economic bounce. In the African American community, and the economic bounce is how long money stays into that community before it's deployed, the capital is deployed outside the community. So in the African American community, it's said that our economic bounce is only 4 to 6 hours. So that means we get paid on Friday and we're out spending money on whatever, whether it's clothing, jewelry, just things that are not creating a return on investment. We got to get good at deploying our capital to be able to get income producing assets and not focus so much on liabilities. The Caucasian community, their economic bounce is 4 to 6 days. Then as we progress and start looking at the Arab communities, the Asian community, there are more of the 13 to 14-day bounce. But in the Jewish community, they have a 19-day economic bounce before money leaves their community. So it is said that all other communities outside of the African American community lives on 2 different income sources. That's 100% of their own community's income and 90% of the African American community's income. So that leaves us with the mere 10% left over. So that is the start before we have any kind of power. You know, when they build strip clubs, bars, or package stores in our communities, and we wonder how did this happen? Why did this happen? It's because so many people were not attending those meetings at 1 o'clock on Wednesday when they made a decision on that referendum. So again, we can talk about voting, you can talk about this, you can talk about that, but until you have economic power, your voice is not heard. So that would be my fundamental start as it relates to being able to have a true impact to make your protesting. So you protest with your dollars. So we got to get in the mindset of understanding that your dollars are your votes. So that's kind of my input on that as it relates to being able to protest effectively and not just make more.
I am actually, I have one more person is trying to join. He's an attorney. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yes. So I think somehow or another, I guess it says it's locked. So when I have the question for you, we're just going to have to do it this way because I don't know if there's any other way. Unless, okay.
I can keep trying.
Okay.
It just keeps on getting...
Okay. So okay. So Troy, can you also respond to that question?
You know, what Sean is saying is pretty powerful. I think it's important to understand impact. And the only way to make impact in this society is through the use of money, because that's what people understand is money. They don't understand words. They don't understand frustrations and pain. They understand the dollar, the almighty dollar. But I think that in addition to that, especially in the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic timeframe, the other 2 options have to be allowed, because you have the older generation that is not really into social media and technology and doing like online forums and having the ability to actually have their voices heard. So the outside open door protesting should be okay. I think the problem with that is there we as a people don't always have organization when we do our protesting. We will go out and we'll go into communities and we'll protest, and it's just chaos and conflict, and this is what they see us as. They see us as those individuals who are out causing chaos and conflict. But if we had a central voice that can actually be out there making the message a single message and one message from the one people, it would actually be a good thing. So having an outdoor thing, that would be good. But I think that the pandemic part causes a problem because of exposure. We all know what the studies are saying now about, the exposure and the transmission rate amongst African Americans and how high it is and mortality rates and all that kind of stuff. So with that, organization needs to be safety as well. So if they're going to continue doing it, that has to happen. And then we have the younger generation that relies on technology. They rely on their social media and their Facebook and their Instagram Live and their now TikTok, which I have my opinions about. But I think that in the age of COVID, I don't think because I think that's the foundation of the question, correct? Is the age of the pandemic and COVID, right? I think that's what the foundation you asked, Georgette. Okay. So making it giving everybody an opportunity for safe protest as well as to be loud and as proud as they can out in the community. Those both have to be options. But I do agree with Sean, in order for us to make a difference and have the powers that be understand where we're coming from and what we are trying to prove and show how powerful our people can be in our communities and in this country, the economic side really has to be paid attention to. We have to use the dollar, which is what our society is based on, our society tends to thrive on. That needs to be a large chunk of our protest. But we can't get our voices heard through just economic protests. We have to get our voices heard through other means too, and that's why the public protests and the protests through technology are important to have.
I have a gentleman. He's actually trying to still get in, so I don't know if you guys can see. Branton, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Branton Grissom, and I actually wanted him to speak a little bit about what he does and what he's doing right now.
Okay. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well?
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Criminal defense. Currently, I'm the public defender for the Colorado River Indian Tribes. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Kansas and well-versed in federal law and several state law. Young man, also really perturbed by what's going on in our world right now. I'm really interested in hearing what all have to say, and I have some thoughts of my own. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm still going to be trying to help him get on. So the second question I wanted to ask, and this is for Sean Harris and Jasmine Gore. What are your thoughts about virtual organizations or boycotts using social media? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I'll yield the floor to the other speaker.
Okay, thank
Go
you.
to the side.
About virtual mobilization and use of social media, correct? If that's the case, I definitely think that now is the time to do that a little bit more. We usually see an increase in trying to get people to vote and know more about the candidates around major election cycles. And I kind of wanted to comment on the last question because I think that voting is the key. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the injustices that many people are upset about in the experience is because of the people that we have in office. And I think there needs to be education around the role of elected officials and how incredibly important it is for every aspect of your life. I posted earlier today, and it took a lot because I thought about it all night. Because oftentimes when you're in an elected position, your words come back and people twist them around or they try to use it for whatever advantage that they want to. And sometimes, and it kind of happened to me today, no matter how what you're trying to say to make sure your message is clear, people often talk about something unrelated to what you're actually talking about. So the one thing I shared was it's the system itself that needs to be broke down and rebuilt. And many people think about elections as just the president, the vice president, and those federal positions, but it's all of the positions, right? We all know we vote for them, but they don't really understand the magnitude of these positions. The closer the elected official's position is to you in your life, the more important it is. So really the priority starts from the bottom and goes up. And I said the local elections, where everybody says in politics that local elections matter, local elections matter the most, right? So your city council, your town council, your sheriff, your courts representative, your commissioner of revenue, your city treasurer, those positions at the bottom that you vote for impact the stuff that you see closest to you in your backyard. So, for example, we're talking about injustices, and we'll take, for example, police wrongfully murdering someone, but then you walk. Okay, well, who's in this line? You have the police chief that manages the police department. You have usually, in most cases, the city manager or the town manager who oversees the police chief, not the elected officials. Then you have the elected officials who oversee the city administration. Then you have the judge that ultimately is the one who sentences and releases the person or whatnot. So your state reps pick your judge. Those judges to determine the outcome. You have your city council who appoint the people who oversee the departments and the staff that are enforcing the laws. So I say that we need to educate people on how government truly functions and whose job is it to create the change that we want to have, but then also stressing the fact that it's just not around presidential time, it's every single election. And if you can stand in line for, what we saw them stand in line for, spicy chicken sandwiches not too long ago, Jordan's, even with COVID-19, all those other things, you can't stand in line to vote. And I had a citizen, I hope he doesn't get mad at me, he commented and said, if you're a black politician, you're talking about voting, then get the F out of here. Well, wait a second. I have no problem with protests. I think there comes a time when you got to protest because nothing else matters. You got to make sure they know that your voice needs to be heard. And they need to know that you have anguish and you're tired and you're frustrated. But at the same time, if you want me to go out there and protest, I need for you to spend 15 minutes voting to give me people to work with. So when you sit here and look at me and say, why aren't you doing more? Then I can say, I have a team. Then you hold people accountable, right? You can only do so much with who you have working with you. We're one or two, but yet the whole entire system that we have to work with, if they're racist or they don't understand the importance of their role, how much change are you going to effectively get? It's going to keep having more protests. For what? Change the people that create the system. So I agree. I think social media is the best way to do that because everyone has their phone in their hands, but you have to make sure you tailor the message that to meet people where they are, because not everybody understands government, how it works at the same level. And that's all I have on that.
Did anybody else want to touch on that?
Well, I have a question, and I don't know if we're allowed to ask questions. And my thing with voting, I think that.
Can we wait to the end? Because I gotta
sure.
listen. Okay, please. Okay, because I'm still trying to bring one more person, and I just figured out how to unlock the meeting. The next question I have, actually, this one was going to be for Timothy, Sean, and Brant. Oh, there you are. Yay. Okay, and Branton. It says, do you think economic pressure would be more successful than moral pressure to fix the problems in the law enforcement systems. Branton, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So can you go ahead and respond to that? Did you hear the question?
Well, yes, I did.
Okay.
As a former police officer, I can tell from experience, and to use the adage, you can't legislate the hearts of man. A lot of things we speculate and we see, and we're like, okay, it's this way. I'm telling you, it is this way. There are a lot of people with the wrong heart on police departments, truthfully. There are good people, but the overarching spirit is one that I don't think can be changed with a moral message. It has to be implemented from policy and consequence. How that will work, I don't know, but it's not some people know what they're doing and how they are. And unfortunately, the people, and I've used this adage, and I hope it's not too offensive. When you have a pedophile, someone who is attracted to children, they're going to go to a school. They're going to go where children are. When you have racist people who want to do harm, they're going to find themselves in occupations that allow them to do that. And there's really no way to screen them. There's really no way, because all you have to do is follow the rules. And the rules are set up to protect you in the first place. So as long as you don't go too far over the line, a lot of things go unchecked. And that's just my personal opinion from experience. And as far as people speaking up, a lot of times, we hear, hey, why don't the good officers just speak up? Because it can ruin your career. That's why. Because there's a lot of things connected to speaking up. Yes, you speak up and you're the one behind bars. All of a sudden there's charges against you. And, I'm sharing some of the things behind the curtain, and I don't know what repercussions may come because of that, but time is out for hiding.
Exactly.
This is the truth, and this is what we're really dealing with. And yeah, it's easy to say, hey, why don't you just say this? Yeah, when it doesn't affect you directly, when your career isn't ruined because you said this, or all of a sudden you're blackballed and can't get a job anywhere else.
Georgette.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to piggyback a little bit on what Branton just said as well. I'm retired from law enforcement as well as a deputy sheriff and a police officer. And just like you said, it's the culture of law enforcement, and there is no morality. That's why I got out of the profession myself, because it's just low standards of morality. And just like Branton, I'm sure he's seen the same thing. One of the biggest questions we have to ask ourselves is, why in African American communities do we only have a influx and a herd of white officers patrolling black communities? Now, here in Atlanta, we typically don't have law enforcement problems. And the reason why is because APD is 86% African American officers. So, it's like we can relate better to our own community. So when you have communities that only have white officers working in black communities, that's where you tend to see the frictions. So, some of the things I've always looked at as far as that morality issue, and even a financial economic aspect of it, is that black officers should be in positions to work black communities in conjunction with those white officers, just like black officers should be able to work white communities.
Right.
But when we don't see that happen, I from my experience, what I've noticed from when I've been in law enforcement, I got in '94. I've been out for quite a while now. But here's the deal: what I'm recognizing today, the vetting system for police officers today, they're looking for the Afghanistan mentality. And I say that by saying they're getting these guys that are coming straight from the military with Afghan mentality, where it's kill first, ask questions later. and they bring that same mentality over. So, I still keep my hours up to date. And like 2 years ago, I went to a training class to get my continuing education. And I remember in that class, I was probably one of 7 African Americans out of a class of about 200. It was in called Carrollton, Georgia, which is known as that area. And I remember they had a 3-hour block of instruction on why it's important for police officers to go out hunting. And in the depths of this teaching, this guy's supposed to be some national level marksman and all this stuff. And he was saying that it's important that an officer should know what it feels like to have a flesh kill, or what it feels like to shoot something and to watch it die and to hunt it down. So that's the mentality that's going on. So when we talked about morality, we got good cops, we got bad cops. In my opinion, what I'm seeing now is a whole bunch of bad ones that's kind of outweighing and diluting the good ones. So, economic pressures in any department will factor in at some point down the road as related to the moral standard. But again, it goes back to the economics again.
Okay. It almost sounds like, is there really gonna be a solution? Because it just seems like, that's the problem right there. And going back to what Brandon said, if there are people who are joining a force, I'm not saying all, because, their intent is to hurt someone, does that mean it will really stop it?
I think the biggest thing there is, we have to get people in position that want to be in the profession for a genuine purpose. And it goes back to what Ms. Gore said, where it takes election. We got to focus in on local elections. Who's going to be your aldermans? Who's going to be your sheriffs? Who's going to be appointed as police chiefs? That's going to be one of the big parameters that's going to be able to make an effective change.
And Georgette, the question was, will economic pressure equate to or be more effective than moral pressure? And I love what I'm hearing on this call, from Sean and Terry. I think we have some brilliant people in our communities now in the mayor, and we see the issues. But as you said, Georgette, where's the plan? And that's what I've created. I've created a plan called T-Bar. And the mission statement for T-Bar is to set, achieve, and celebrate strategic nationwide initiatives for the unification, economic empowerment, and preservation for the Black American race. Time to raise the bar. So when you talk about, it's going to take a strategic combination of strategies, voting is included, marching is included. When you bring those strategies together in an organized fashion, as Terry was saying, then we're going to be able to see, some results. Again, the boycotting thing, I don't want to knock anyone who is trying, has an effort to do anything positive, but I come from a sales background and marketing. And if we can't track the results, how can we measure how effective it's going to be? So, back to what Sean said, Gucci, we didn't shop at Gucci for 3 weeks. Well, how much money did we cost them? We don't know. So without having some kind of strategic measuring component to track, the results, then I don't know how effective that's going to be. Now, when in regards to, the economics, I come from the streets. I'm on this call with some very intelligent minds. I come from the street, and on the streets, the golden rule is he who has the goal makes the rules, period. And so if unification has to be first. We, as a race of people, represent about 14% of the total population in America. That's about 60 million people. Now, if 60 million people, or just a small percentage of that number, say 1 million people came together with a focused strategic plan, and we say, hey, this is kind of how T-Bar set up. if you have 1 million people donating $8 a month, that's $8 million a month. You can set up some businesses in the inner city, and those businesses begin to employ people in that community. Those businesses give back to that community. Now the manager is a black person. The person making the deliveries is a black person. And now when it comes to voting, now we have more finances to allow individuals to get the training that they need so that they can, participate in these governmental affairs. So I think it's a combination of both. I think you can't do it just economically. It can't be morally. I do believe, as Sean said, that any initiative that we take, it must be founded and grounded on principles of morality, or it's futile.
May I?
Yes.
Just piggybacking on what Timothy said. It's a combination of a whole lot of things. Now, a lot of things that we're talking about have been done before. There was a Black Wall Street. There was the Black Panther group. A lot of the things that we're already talking about has already happened. What are we going to do differently to prevent what happened before now? What are we going to do? And I think we need to analyze what was missing. And one of the things that I think was missing is a combined effort on all fronts. Whenever you're trying to accomplish a great goal, you have to be willing to take great risks. And that risk may be a career. That risk may be even your life. Are we willing as a community to risk those things? To a point, we'll say something here and there. We'll do something here and there, but really to take that risk that could be fatal. If we had a combined effort to do that, like if everybody came in willing to die, nobody would die.
Right.
But we're not. If we don't have that mindset, there's always going to be casualties. And how do we get a combined mindset that we're in this for the long run? No matter what happens to me, I'm in it for my brother. I'm in it for my sister. No matter what how it affects me. Just taking that instance, what we watched just recently with the brother being choked to death. Okay, we had a brother there who was watching. He was very verbal. And we know what kind of risk he was in if he had done something physically to stop those officers. We know what kind of risk he was in. But if there was a group of us that was willing to take that risk along with that brother, he doesn't have to do it alone. He doesn't have to be the only one. But in that instance, he was the only one. And I could feel his pain. I could put myself in that situation. I could say, would I have been able to risk my well-being to help? Not just verbally, which I equate to protest. Not just financially, but with my life. And I think that should be a part of the discussion as well. And be honest with ourselves. It's risky because it's been done before. What happened with Black Wall Street? What happened with the Black Panthers? And there's an adaptation. Using Martin Luther King as a foundational principle. Times have changed since then. People have adapted since then. Mindsets have morphed and evolved since then as a result of what happened back then. How have we evolved?
Right. I'm listening to everyone and I'm thinking we may have to do this like once every other week just to be able to get to the solution. I mean, I think that I just can't believe there's nothing that we can do, but I think together, if we continue to build and like Timothy, what you said, I guess was it Tabar?
T-Bar.
T-Bar. Maybe that is something that, everyone might want to look at to see how we can go from where we are now to actually getting back to a Black Wall Street. And oh my God, it's already 6:43, so I'm gonna kind of go through some of these questions. I know there's a lot to discuss, but there's some key things that I wanted to talk about tonight. This question is for Jasmine Gore and Troy. I think you guys have the actual question. I'll read it. I asked, what are some of the things that people can do to cope with the mental environment of dealing with COVID-19 and the hurt and anger that people are dealing with most of the time due to the current climate of what's happening specifically to Black men and minorities as a whole. And then I want to add to that, how do we deal with Black trauma going through what we're seeing right now? Now we got to go to work. So that's kind of like a two-part. So Troy, can you start? Okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah.
One of my specialties, I'm a certified clinical trauma professional, so I work with trauma survivors and with my patients at work. And one of the things that I try to get people to understand is not just the personal trauma, but it's the generational environmental traumas that are affecting the way that their lives are moving forward. So this is another environmental trauma that our people are having to experience because of what's happening in our country. And it's hard to even give an accurate answer or even a clear answer on what they can do to cope, because everybody's coping skills are different. But I can say this: COVID has created a very dangerous set of circumstances for not just the country as a whole, but for our people. Isolation and not being allowed to gather socially, and not being allowed to use your peers and your family and people like that to help you manage your stress and your anxiety. That right there is one of the biggest issues in this situation, because we cannot function properly if we're constantly wired up, if we're constantly, full of anxiety and full of stress. So the short answer is we need to find a way to stay connected, not just as a family and as friends, but as a community. And if we cannot find our ways to stay connected and to have our kumbaya sessions and have our conversations with each other and bounce ideas and de-escalation, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to cope. We're going to end up having more situations where people are overreacting to what's happening out in the community because they're so stressed, they're so full of anxiety, they have so much trauma going on, and we know how trauma can manifest itself in people's behaviors. We as a people do it every single day. We see it all the time across the country. So we have to find a way to try to mitigate the effects of the trauma in this age of COVID, because otherwise, and I don't like to sound like I'm speaking negatively or like it's there's some doom and gloom ahead, but when we get frustrated as a people, sometimes we will act in different ways than we would have done if we were nice and calm and less stressed. So the risk of more police brutality situations, the risk of more, dead innocent Black people is high, because we are not controlling our level of stress, anxiety, and trauma. And a lot of that, we do that as a people through community, through connection, through conversation, and that's not happening. We can't have that right now because of COVID. So I don't know how best to make that happen, but we just need to promote. Like I've told people, it should never be social distancing. It should never be social distancing. We should not be distancing ourselves from people. We should be socially separating ourselves, but we should still stay connected through telephone calls, through social media, through contacts, through things like that. And I think that is a huge part of how we can teach our people and help our people cope during this time, because it's not easy. Everybody's like, well, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, the government says we can't go outside. The government says we can't have parties. The government says we can't have gatherings. And now we get more stressed. So promoting connectedness, promoting conversation, community, same thing we're talking about in this forum in general. As a people, we should be promoting that even more now, because that's what's going to help us remain calm, less anxious, and mitigating the effects of trauma that we're going to experience regardless of how it happens. Because every time we turn on the TV, social media, and we watch what's happening, we're seeing the trauma. And we all know that you don't have to actually experience it. You can view it, and it still affects you the same way. So we have to create an environment that we are open to still communicating with each other and not staying isolated, but remaining safe.
And Jasmine.
I'll say he said it perfectly. He said it perfectly. I'm sorry, somebody walked past my house or something as the dogs are barking. But I can just share, like, I have a group of friends that are elected officials from across the country. And about a week ago, and they did it last night, I missed them, and I really need to be on that call. But we did a Zoom with all of us, and we sat down and we just unloaded everything that we were dealing with. And it was so therapeutic just to be with my friends and see their faces. And now we chat and talk on text messages all day long, but it was something about seeing their faces and us laughing together in real time. And that's why I was so disappointed I missed the call yesterday. I was like, I needed that. But I think everything that he shared is accurate. I will say that when I see the protesters right now, my concern is we still have a pandemic that we're facing, and they're in large crowds, not wearing masks, and the minorities are more prone to suffer due to COVID-19. I'm not saying different health things. I'm not a doctor, but I also think about the access to health care, right? Which is something else plaguing the Black community. So it's not necessarily us, we're getting sicker. It's the fact that we don't have the tools to be able to get well. And I just had a webinar with Dr. Morris from Morris Cardio yesterday, and he touched on kind of like what the gentleman just mentioned in terms of isolation. We're talking about blue zone cities and potentially trying to improve our health when we come out of COVID-19 pandemic, and isolation is one of the things that kills you. Stress is a killer, and also isolation. And so I would say in terms of the Black community and trauma, there's PTSD happening every day in Black communities. And I'm trying to work on a grant called Seize the Opportunity, and one element of it was to talk about PTSD. And I have a friend who's the council president in Wilmington, Delaware. She brought in the CDC. They did a whole study about how shootings and crime affected their minority communities. And I was hoping to do something similar, but now we all know the CDC is tied up. But adverse childhood experiences, trauma-informed care, all those things need to be looked at in communities of color or communities that have high crime. Because as you mentioned, it is generational, and children are growing up seeing this, and they're conditioned. And I saw I did not want to watch the video of Ms. Floyd, but I finally broke down and watched it. And I wish I never watched it, because now it's like burned into my memory. And I feel that way every time I see these videos. And I feel like the media makes it worse when they put the videos on TV and we see people being gunned down. Like Ahmaud Arbery, when we saw the blood on his shirt on live television, they're aiding in this trauma. And so there is no solution right now, and I think it's more conversation, but I definitely think to get the ball rolling is looking at policy, but then also making sure you're connected, as he stated, and to ensure that we just do mental health check-ins on one another, because during the time of lockdown, abuse has increased, suicides have increased, and all the conditions that were plaguing people prior to COVID-19 are starting to bubble up and surface. And so it doesn't help. I don't know the different states they're in, but Virginia, we left our ABC stores open. So alcoholism, drug use, all of those things. And then we talk about mental health. When we talk about Black trauma, talk about the Black men. Mental health is the issue in the Black community, period. So even with this, everything's just magnified. And so I just think that, as was shared, connecting with one another and making sure we just check in on people is the thing that we can do right now. It's a small gesture and it means a lot. Just to let someone know that you're just checking on them. Sometimes that's all it needs to help the next person get by. So that's all I have on this.
Okay, I appreciate that. And we're actually at 6:53, and I know everybody's busy, so I'm gonna try and rush through. I think I have a couple more questions. Let's see. Oh, Brand,
Yes.
I just wanted to know if you can briefly touch on bond law, and I feel that's really important for individuals to know and how they use it when maybe they're in some type of crisis or some type of or having a problem with law enforcement. So if you can touch on bond law.
Okay. Just to a bond as in bail.
Well, bond law, I think I had posted about, I guess you can call your state commissioner if there's an issue and you can issue actually, I guess, some type of bond against the public servant. Do you remember?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't actually prepare for that specific question. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about bond as in bail
No.
and how that works. Next time, if you give me the opportunity, I will be able
Okay.
to bond. I can give you a
Okay.
precursor, but I'm not,
Okay.
with the level of group that we have here today, I want to be on point.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. All right. Okay. And okay. Did anybody want to say anything before I go on to the next question? Did anybody want to touch?
I wanted to make a comment about, what's really missing. Branton said something key. What's different, from the Black Wall Street, from Dr. King? And it's leadership. It all starts with leadership. We, at this point in our society, there was a time when I was growing up, if something happened, we knew either Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton was going to show up. They was going to be on the scene. Now,
Right.
we don't have the leadership. And what Branton said was, it was key. That was a leadership statement. You'll find great leaders that say, for this cause, I am prepared to die.
Mm-hmm.
Until a person finds a cause that they're prepared to die for, they're not qualified to be in leadership. And that's the key component I think that's missing with what we need to do, as well as a well-organized plan.
Okay.
Can I?
May,
Do
may,
you mind if I ask something?
Go ahead.
I wrote down exactly when he was speaking. Everything he said was like on point, and it made me think about some of the thoughts I had about leadership and why they're absent right now, or the difference between the younger generation like myself and why we don't view certain things the way as the older generation, and how that gap right between generations in terms of what we're fighting for, the fact that the fight isn't over. How did that gap create itself, I guess you could say. But definitely the point on leadership, and why is there not a leader that we can gravitate to that can do this unity? And that was the question I wanted to ask because of his comments, is why do you think that is? Where are they? They're still alive. So what happened? Where did that shift come in play where we don't have that anymore?
may I answer? I have a thought on that. And it goes to, and I just recently got into a heated debate with a fellow attorney about Willie Lynch. Okay. And there's some debunking going on as far as the origin of those letters. However, if you examine that Willie Lynch letter, you can see that the correlation of some of the things that happen in our history. I'm not talking about how it came to be, whether the letter is real, whether there was actually a Willie Lynch. If you look at those letters, there is a psychological process that we go through if certain things happen, if we see certain things, if we see lynchings on TV repeatedly. It has a psychological effect on us. I'm saying I'm an expert on the subject. However, I can't help but see the correlation. and I can't help but assess that seeing Martin Luther King die, seeing Malcolm X die, did not affect us psychologically. Seeing George Floyd die doesn't affect us psychologically, so that we do not get to the point, or if there is someone that is to the point that they will do that, they see that they're just one person, and that I can't get any people to help me. I can't get anybody to help me because of the psychological effect that what has happened to us has done to our corporate psyche. And I think the way to break free from that is to get to the point where we're not depending on the government for safety.
Hmm.
We get to the point that we're saying, hey, this game is rigged, and that I'm not going to play this game anymore. When you get to that point, then you start to think about, hey, how can I be self-sufficient? We need this. How can I do that? We are, corporately, in my opinion, we are very dependent on the United States government. We want law enforcement to protect us. We don't protect ourselves. We want food to be provided to us. We don't grow our own food. We want health care to be provided for us. We don't have our own doctors. We have them, but
Okay.
we are dependent. And
Branson?
Yes, I'm sorry.
It was disconnected, so I don't know how much we did not hear. Can you kind of start from where you were? Did everybody hear what he said? Because on my end,
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, we all heard it. You dropped off.
Okay.
What's the last thing you heard? And I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time.
Honestly, this is so good. I mean, this is powerful.
It is.
We're talking
It
about
is.
oil. And that's where I actually dropped off.
Okay. Well, I'll just continue on the same vein, and I'll try to make it real short. I was talking about how dependent we are, and we don't even have the mindset to be self-sufficient. We don't have that mindset, and we need that mindset, because once that mindset comes along, you'll understand that we need to protect our leaders.
Mhm.
Okay? We are quick when they throw something bad about us out. We are quick to jump on it. I can quickly name off some names that I won't even name right now, that have done great things for our community, but because they have been thrown under the bus, even by us. I come from a big family.
Mhm.
I learned that, we'll handle our business in house, but we don't put our business in the streets.
Right.
If there's a problem with your brother, deal with it in house. Don't
Right.
deal with it out in the streets. Okay? And that's about being family. But are we really family? Or have we been so psychologically crippled that we are no longer family? We're just individuals that carry the same name. Do we really have that family mindset where what happens to my brother is actually happening to me?
Mhm.
We
Right.
do feel it when in extreme situations, but does it have to be an extreme situation for us to feel it? We feel it when we see George Floyd laying there dying, being tortured in front of us. We feel that, but it's being pulled out of us.
Mhm.
What is it when we see that child that needs his father? Do we have that feeling? Do we have that same feeling we see that woman being mistreated? Do we have that same feeling that, hey, that's my sister, don't treat her like that?
Right.
And I think we need to have that heart to heart with our community and with ourselves, and some healing that needs to be done, because I believe we've been psychologically damaged, and we need some healing, and to accept the truth about us, accept the truth that we are psychologically crippled, and that we have been divided, and so to speak, because it's too scary to be united. It's too detrimental to be united. That's why when one of us gets to the top, I deal with it all the time. You get to the top and you're like, man, I want to help my brother. I want to help him. But I know if I bring him on, that shortens my time. If
That's
I bring
right.
him
That's right.
talking from my experience. Now I'm a public defender. And I'm being honest. I'm a public defender. I manage several attorneys, and I can help young brothers coming along. But I know every young brother that I bring up shortens my time. And
That's
that's
right.
so many times. I know it's not speculation. I've seen people have helped me to their detriment. And I appreciate people that have helped me, but I know it was to their detriment. I know they were risking something to help me get to where I am. And you know what? I'm not going to be, I talk with myself every day. I try to make it my motto not to do what's convenient, but do what's right. And even if it's going to hurt me, you have to do that every day, because it will hurt you to do what's right in this environment with this game that is rigged. It will hurt you. It's going to hurt your career. A target is going to be on your back. The target is going to be right in front of you. At this point, it's obvious that certain people don't care at this point in some way, shape, and form or fashion. But get to the point is I'm going to do what's right no matter what. That officer is going to pepper spray me or maybe even shoot me if I stand between him and my brother underneath his knee. But am I willing to do that? Am I willing to take that step? And I think that's what the point that we need to get to.
Okay. Thank you. Now,
That was deep.
Yes, it was 7, and I just want to. Did you want to say anything, Leslie?
I can relate to everything that he just said. Like in the job place, when you're trying to help out your brother or your sister, and in turn, she comes after you. It happens to all of us. I know we've all experienced it. So then you say, well, I'm not going to help the next person this time. I'm just going to make it to the top. And I had to fight to get my way up to the top, so she's going to have to fight to get her way to the top. I'm not going to help her. And it's sad. It's sad. Speaking on the cop, I know we all saw and we all felt it. We all said the same thing. Why did someone help? And it's so sad because, you know, if you try to help, you, like he said, you're either going to get shot or pepper sprayed. So the best tool that anybody had was the camera. Because if he didn't have the camera, it would have been over. It would have been all over. They would not be going to jail.
Georgette, if I could interject something real quick that I think will be helpful for a lot of people. Again, I'm here in Georgia, so we have what's called an OCGA, which is our annotated code of laws. Here in Georgia, and I'm almost certain, but I'm not an attorney, but I'm almost certain in most states who have stand your ground laws, stand your ground law, the way I read it, and have read it multiple times, is that as citizens, we still have the right to implement that law, even if it pertains to a police officer. So, Branton, and maybe you can kind of help me out here as I kind of get this point out. If you see a law enforcement official putting a person, a citizen, a third-party citizen, in jeopardy, it's going to cause imminent harm or even death of that person, that by law, you can stop that or interject, even if it means taking that officer's life. If you know they're doing something that is not in the color of the law as it relates to being able to do that. So here's the deal. When we see all these incidents, we see people, we got 20 cameras out there and everybody's scared to do something. So by not knowing laws and knowing that as a citizen you have this right, we all just stand and just say, hey, help him, get off of him, and we're steady filming. But I'm just going to keep this as real can get. If it comes to a point where Caucasian officers are coming into African-American communities and they are seeing that, hey, we just got jumped by 20 brothers and sisters that put it on us, they put it on our head. So when that word gets out, they're gonna say, hey, black people are not having this in their communities any longer because they educated themselves and found out what the laws were. But collectively, we have to be able to do that. And we can't be onesie and twosies. As a community, we have to be able to know the laws, what you are and are not allowed to do legally.
Okay.
Branton, is that,
Yeah,
did you want to respond?
you are correct, sir. Arizona is actually one of the stand your ground states, and also Kansas. But to that point, not only knowing the law, but knowing you have backup. You know that there's going to be repercussions for what you're doing. You know they're going to come at you.
That's
You may get injured. You may have legal issues. Do I have a lawyer? Is there a lawyer that's going to represent me? A good lawyer? Is there some that's going to take care of my family if I meet my demise and I act upon this? And I think coupled with the knowledge that we also need to have the knowledge that there's somebody backing you up, that you have a community backing you up. And that community is bigger than the situation that you're in right now. You know, it's
Right.
bigger than this convenience store situation. You know, by the police. There's a whole group of thousands of people that will come to your aid if you act upon your right, what you have to do, and I think that will help as well.
Okay.
You
I,
know, um, if I may get in just a second, Branton, you said so much positive things, and I really have felt your words, but I think it goes back to the family structure that you talked about. As Mayor Gore talked about as well. It starts right there. A community is common unity, and it starts in family. See, the marriage is the foundation for the family. The family is the foundation for the community. The community is the foundation for the nation. So anytime there's a problem, you have to go back to the root cause. And I think that we have in our families, we've become so divided. I call division our greatest enemy. We become so divided. You know,
Thank you, Mama.
we don't understand the impact of when a brother and a sister are arguing in front of a child. If my mama beats me, like Mayor Gore was saying, my mama beats me, the person that loves me the most, she beats me, physically abuses me. The person out on the street don't stand a chance. If this person
Hmm.
loves me like this and plants that seed in my head to beat me, I'll kill you. And so it's got to go back to the root, and that's what T-Bar is. And you mentioned about moving up the ladder. When we create our own, then we don't have that worry. That's what T-Bar is about. Is becoming self-sufficient, where a gangster. We put the people in office we want in office,
Amen.
and then we can get represented the way we need to be represented. So
exactly. Okay.
I like
Well,
that.
you
That's
know what? There's so much good information right now. I could go on, and I know everybody's busy. Um, I would like to continue this dialogue, not just today. Maybe you guys can tell me your schedules, maybe every other week, every 2 weeks, once a month, because I think there's so much that we want to discuss. There's so much
Yeah.
great information, and sometimes it's difficult to get it all out, and everybody has so many things they want to say. Um, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine. And do you have the questions, Jasmine?
No, I didn't get your email.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read this. And it's kind of like three parts. So the first part, it says, what steps can the community take to hold public service officials accountable in between elections? The second part is, what can local people do in their communities to be part of the change? And tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay. And then what are some, and this is, everyone can talk about this, what are some challenges you have experienced, and how can the community support your vision and the changes you're trying to make?
So the first question was holding elected officials accountable during elections, right? So one is to be present, right? And I shared this with someone months ago on my Facebook page. Government, it's not, how do I word this? The duty of governance is not rest solely on the elected official. It also rests on the resident, the voter, right? You have a duty to vote. Then you have a duty to track what's going on in your government and to hold those accountable. Voting is not the end of your duty. So once you cast your ballot, great. That's step one. That's the most important thing that you can do. But then after that, you're supposed to make sure that the people that you voted in office are doing what they say they're going to do. And that means that, one, holding their promises. You're not supposed to make promises, but staying true to what you campaigned on at the minimum. But then also making sure that you re-engage with the community that you're representing to make sure that you understand their thoughts, how they feel, and the issues that they want to see addressed. But you have to make sure you hold them accountable to do that as a part of being a voter. So I say throughout election cycles, it means knowing when your board or however way you're governed, if it's city council, board, town board, or whatever, how often they meet, what platforms they meet on. And sometimes I know people are busy. I know some people say, well, I don't have time to go to a meeting. I don't have this. Okay, check to see, do they have their meetings electronic? Or do they go live and you can go back and you can watch it? Check to see if their minutes and their agenda is on a website that you can be able to access. And if you don't even have time to sit here and go through all that, at least make sure you check the topics. Maybe there's a topic that stands out to you and you can check the minutes on that particular subject. Check to see if they send out information in a newsletter or some type of other electronic means, maybe a weekly news blast via email, or maybe they post on their social media page. Take the time out to actually like and follow the pages of your government, not just the main page, but even the subsets, like your police department, your fire station, your parks and recreation, all the entities that fall under government. And I think that in between election cycles, you need to do your due diligence to track what's going on, but then also share the information with others. And when you see misinformation being posted online, correct it. Because I can't tell you, this kind of goes to the last point that you asked me, how many times I see posts about me or something that I've done that is completely inaccurate. And it's just gaslighting from the people that oppose me on council or either staff. But people don't even take the time out to even, one, check the source. Also, look at the source you're listening to. If they don't agree or oppose me, clearly they're not going to be honest about what they're posting for the most part. But before you start reposting or resharing or commenting, take the time out to make sure that you're even commenting on the right thing. And educate your peers when you see them engaging in conversation to make sure everyone is informed, right? So that's what I say about election cycles. And then making sure people are still registered to vote in between elections. Depending on where you live, they might purge the voter rolls after an election if you haven't voted in a year. That's what they do in Virginia. And you could be knocked off the voter rolls and don't even know it because you just didn't vote in the primary, right? Because we have elections every year in Virginia. That's the kicker. We have election every single year. So you don't vote in the primary because that's not important to you, but you come around to try to vote for your congressman or the president, you off the voter rolls. So always make sure people check to see they are still registered, and you can do that on Virginia Department of Elections website by putting in your basic information. It's not too invasive. It's like 4 questions, and it lets you know your voter status. And right now, actually, shameless plug, I'm not on the ballot for this, but primaries is coming around the corner in June. You can ask for absentee ballot, and you can vote by mail in Virginia right now. So make sure you do that for the primary, so that way you can still vote and not expose yourself right now during this pandemic. How can people be a part of the change? I pretty much listed a lot of those options. But the other thing I would say is, and this is another bone that kind of irritates me, is don't just complain on Facebook. Do something. People rant on social media, but yet they're not writing letters, they're not calling in, they're not coming to the council meetings. Sign up if you have time to volunteer on a city board. So some of the decisions that impact you do not necessarily come from the government. It comes from your peers who serve on boards. For example, if people complain about traffic patterns, okay, we have a traffic transportation board. You want to serve on the transportation board, and you can help make decisions about the traffic pattern. People are complaining about businesses coming downtown. Is it equitable? Good Old Boys Network getting the same people business? Well, we have an economic development board. You want to serve on that board? So making sure that you use your voice in a productive way by actually investing the time to be a part of creating the change. And if you don't have that, because not everyone does, make sure you share the word about, hey, you should serve on this board. You should be interested and let people know that they can actually be involved in their government, not just election cycle, but actually at the table throughout the year. And then I also would say making sure you communicate to your council or whoever is in charge of you as board supervisors what the issues are in your community. Don't be silent about them. Make sure you directly let them know what your concerns are. If not, then you really can't hold them accountable for not fixing something they didn't know was bothering you or your neighbors. And so I think that's the biggest part. I know I try to do my part to try to be as transparent as I possibly can on my page. And I try to make sure I include people as much as I can. And I think the last part was, what was your last question? I'll try to write that down.
It was, let's see. Oh, the challenges that you have experienced and how can the community support your vision and the changes you're trying to make. And I think you kind of touched on that, right?
Basically, okay. I mean, that's pretty much it. The challenges I have personally, it would be a whole nother webinar to go through those things. But and I'll just say the struggles that we're talking about in the Black community as a whole, think about your Black elected officials. We have it just as bad, right? Because you're not Black enough or you're too Black or what. We got a whole nother struggle with being elected officials that are Black. So I would just say all the points I said about being engaged is the best way to help me, and just reach out to me directly or your elected official if you want to know what's really going on with what they're doing and what they've done, or if you have questions, go to the source.
Okay, so we're actually at 7:20. I'm sure everyone is probably ready to go eat or watch TV or whatever. So I want to just do I'm going to give everybody 3 minutes for just one last question. Everybody can respond. And this one was, what can white America, or I should say white people and minorities, do to help eradicate racism in America? So I'm going to give everybody 3 minutes. We're going to start with you, Timothy.
Okay. I think racism, we don't really understand it. It is an organized, systematic process. And I think when we focus on the problem, we get away from the solution. So I think my mindset is, let's focus on the solution. There's we can have these discussions, but at some point we can't keep saying 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 get ready, 3 get ready, 3 get ready. At some point we got to say, you know what, this is what we're going with, this is the plan, and boom, go. And I mean, not just any plan, it has to be strategic. And I think that if we can get the mindset of, our communities and our families on one solution, like T-Bar. T-Bar is, I think, a lot of different strategies we've had have been segregated. Even the voting, you're Democratic or you're a Republican and you vote for this person. T-Bar is not like that. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO or you are a dope dealer. It's kind of like, and I'll be quick with this. It's kind of like, you remember the movie Denzel did with Ice-T called Ricochet. Denzel was an elected official, and Ice-T was, he was a dope dealer. But they came together and brought the bad guy down. Right. And that's what we have to do. We have to, unite. I like using movies. Denzel in Malcolm X, when he went to visit the young brother in the hospital who had gotten beaten, and he came outside and all of his people were standing there and they were at attention, they were sharp. And Denzel said, and the policeman behind him said, that is too much power for one man. And we focus on the power for one man, but look at what that guy saw. He saw everybody moving at the same time as power.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's
As
where we got to
one.
get to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John.
Look, one of the key things, again, I always stay on the fact of economics. A shameless plug, if I may, real quick. This is my 28th book that I've written, and it's titled "Why It's Critical for Black Families to Make Money," and it's subtitled "The Survival of the Race." And if we don't get to the point where we got to stop saying, "I want to have a seat at the table," and build a table. Don't just build a table, build a whole restaurant. So one of the key things in order to do that is we got to have the financial literacy, the business acumen. We have to be in positions where we are heard because we have economic impact. And again, like I always tell people, economic power is when you sign the front and the back of your check, and that you're not held down to the thumb on the back of the neck of any type of oppression economically. Because when you can't vote economically, no other vote is going to really matter. So I think that's one of the biggest things as far as being able to overcome that big hurdle that I think everyone's looking for. Well, how do we do this? How do we do that? It all comes back to economics. And as Brother Bratton said, we got to understand the dynamics and the negative influence of what the lynch letters have created. Almost every conversation I have as it relates to economics and business, I always bring up the lynch letters. And when you understand that, it'll take you into so many different aspects of why we do what we do as a community, the way we think, the way we view each other. And that has got to change, and that has to be a generational change as well. So again, I think somebody mentioned earlier, we can't go on our grandparents' ideologies and even our current ideologies. The millennials are not seeing that. So if we stay the same, every generation, there's never going to be any growth. So those are the key points I think that will really help us as a community.
Okay. Let's see. Leslie?
I really don't have anything, Jack. Just listening to everybody, I agree with everybody. We need to figure out a plan, how to work together, be as one. Right now it's looking real bleak out there. It's real scary. It would be nice to be able to, see someone hurt and I can come to their aid, but we're not there. We're not there yet. So hopefully we can get there.
Right.
Hopefully.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see who's next. Tony?
Tony or Troy?
I put Tony. I've been calling you Tony.
That was the first time. You said Tony this time. Last time you said Troy. So I'll give a three-part answer. The first part is I agree with what's been said prior. There are a lot of steps that need to be taken, but we need to understand that this can't happen in our, probably not even our generation, to eradicate racism. It's just not going to happen. My second answer is, what can white people do to help eradicate racism? Nothing. They can't do anything to eradicate it because it's never going to be completely eradicated. What they can do is they can change the focus, the perception, and the direction and how they raise their children into next generations to help change how it affects minorities, especially the Black community. They can't necessarily erase it because it's how this country was founded on this, and we're talking 400 years of, it's here. It's not going to get eradicated, but the cognitions around the way we look at it and think about it can be changed within their community. They don't have to come to us and ask us anything. They just need to train their kids that this, what we showed you, this, what we did and what grandma and grandpa did, this is not how things are supposed to be. Let's change the way that we want to do things. That way we can affect how your generation will treat Black people from this point forward. Because we can't change the past, but we can change what we do from here and now. So that what the white people can do, they can do their part in their communities, in their families, to change the direction that they send their children. Because right now they have no idea. These kids have no idea where they're going. They're just following what they see. So they need to change the direction that their children are going. My third part of the answer is what you asked what minorities do. I'm going to specifically talk about Black people, and we need to change how do I word this? Our internal discrimination, things that we do to ourselves and in our communities, against our communities and ourselves, based on what society has taught us all these years. We need to change. We need to reprogram our minds around that. And what Timothy was talking about, his program, I mean, that's exactly what he's talking about. You need to reprogram the way we see ourselves, because we can't expect other people to view us differently if we view ourselves this way.
Yes.
So we need to change the way that we view ourselves and the way we present ourselves and the way we carry ourselves to present to the world that what you guys taught us how to be murderers and killers and thieves and single fathers and leaving our families, all that stuff you taught us, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to be our own people. We want to have our own soul. We want to have our own focus. We want to have our own direction. And that internal discrimination that exists and has existed for so many years because of what we were taught by the slave masters, all the way through Jim Crow, all the way through Donald Trump, all that stuff, we need to find a way to turn that off and reprogram our brains. And just like I said about the white people teaching their kids, we need to teach our kids that reprogramming. Because we can change our minds right here, right now. We can sit here and beat ourselves up and write down and do journals and change the way we think about the world and ourselves. But if we don't talk to the next generation of our people and have them go into the world and behave a different way, it's just going to be perpetuated generation after generation after generation. So racism is a complicated issue. I say internal discrimination because, we all know racism has to have power connected to it, and we don't have power in this country, which Brandon and Sean we need to change, right? But we do need to change that internal discrimination, because that is key to, one, changing the way that our past traumas have affected us, and changing the way that our past traumas as a people will affect our people in the future. So that's my take.
Thank you, Troy.
Very good.
Jasmine?
Yes, ma'am. I'll just echo everything that we covered tonight touches on how to end racism, but I think also we need to look at overall discrimination. I know some people be upset, but all discrimination needs to stop in general. Age, sex, religion, all of it needs to end. So I think what we touched on tonight definitely begins the process of having a deeper discussion about racism specifically. But I think, like I said, I think voting is important, and I agree with one of the earlier comments made that it's a collective approach, not just voting, not just economics, but a multi-tiered approach to address all of these problems. So thank you for inviting me. You had wonderful guests on the line. I learned so much. I definitely want to see if I can connect with everyone after this and learn a little bit more about their perspective and some information. I'm definitely interested in learning more. But I think this is really great. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think, who's left? Branton, your 3 minutes of fame.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this discussion. I know I came in late on technical difficulties, and I hope that didn't sound too radical, but this has stirred some things up in me, and you just caught me when I'm feeling it. And as to your questions, first question was, what can white people do? I think the best thing for us is for white people to be who they are. And I am a believer in the component that people don't change at the core, they adapt to their environment. And not to say that people can't improve, but it's an adaptation, not necessarily their core changing. When we get to a certain point, when we're talking about adults and not children. And once again, I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm just my personal opinion. And with that being said, for us, a lot of things that we're seeing is a natural reaction. Of course, if you're going to be on top, you're going to do certain things, and you're going to operate in a way to keep yourself on top. That's natural. And sometimes we expect for people to do that which is unnatural instead of doing that which will make them adapt. We want somebody to give us instead of making them pay or want to be a part of the to use a capitalist term, the currency. Know that in order to get this, I need to give this. We have the mindset of the handout. We want them to give it instead of, hey, if I act this way, there's going to be some consequences. Or if I act this way, I'm going to get a positive result. Do they have that? Do white people have that? If they act a certain way, is it positive for them? Or if they act in a negative manner, is it negative for them? Really, is the or else strong enough? If you do not do this, then this is going to happen. Or if you do this, then this is going to happen. And I think that as we get stronger as a community and get healthier, that will happen automatically. And racism doesn't have to go away, but racism can be in check because racism, I believe, is natural. It's a negative natural occurrence, but it is natural and it goes to the heart of man, which that's up to the individual person to deal with. And that can't be changed by any person or any entity. It has to be changed by that person. And that's just what I believe. As far as our community goes, I think that we have been herded into an individualistic mindset. And with that individual mindset, we have been forced to be everything and not free to specialize in anything. Now, I really like what Mayor Gore was talking about. She was talking about paying attention and calling elected officials to the table and on the carpet for what they promised. But for everybody can't do that. It's hard when you have kids to feed your single mother and you just trying to make sure that you have a job to do those kind of things. But if you were a family and you had a community, you have somebody to do that for you, somebody that you can trust. Hey, you know what are they talking about? I trust you. I trust what you have to say. I didn't have time to do that, but I know you specialize in that. And I trust you, and you are an advocate for me, and I can go to that. And if we could have that trust for each other, now everybody can't be a lawyer. Everybody shouldn't have to be a lawyer. But if I'm a lawyer and I love my community, I'm a resource for my community. And I'm willing to give that back. And you don't have to know the law because I know the law and I will help you. And, that goes back to having our own as well. If we're always dependent on somebody else and you don't really have your own, you're always behind the ball. And you're always going to have that level of distrust, and living in a distrustful environment is not healthy for us. We need to have another thing. When we're talking about having a voice and being relevant, I think we need to understand what true currency really is. It's not money. The currency that makes things happen is not money. And it goes back to what Brother Stewart was saying. He who has the gold makes the rules. But what is gold? What is gold? People are gold. Resources are gold. It's not money. What do we really have that's truly gold? Do we produce our own food? Do we have our own banks? It's not about the currency. The currency is out there, but do we know what we really have? Do you know that every child in your house is an asset? Do we look at it like that, or just something that, hey, you know what? I'm bound. I got these kids, and I have to pay for this. I'll be glad when they're up and grown. so I can do what I really want to do. But you don't really understand that, hey, my son is an asset to the community. He's an asset to me. My daughter's an asset. And if you treat that son like an asset,
Mm.
that son and daughter will be an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my last point, and I hope I'm not going too long. We have some of these things already set up. Yes, they are unhealthy. Yes, they're based off erroneous things. And I'll be the quick to say I'm a licensed minister, and I'm not afraid to say that there's a lot wrong with the church.
Mm.
But the church in our community has been that place where we could go for who we need, that advocate. The church has been. Don't throw it away. I say do not throw it away because it's already there. And just like a body, sometimes you have a limb that isn't working to its full potential or sick, but it's still a part of the body. It's still a part of the body. And you know what? That sick limb can still be a benefit. And a lot of times, especially with young people, we see the problems and we want to throw it away. We say, hey, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with this. There's problems with it. Older people, whether it's a group ethnicity, whether it's a group, I see the problems, and you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with it. Instead of understanding, hey, that's your heritage, and it still has a benefit for you. And if you stand the test of time, you can be that catalyst for change and that catalyst for health that the body needs. And so I'll end with that. Don't throw away the things that we already have. Don't throw away the NAACP. Don't throw away the Urban League. Don't throw away religion. Yes, there's problems with everything. Humanity is fallible, but there's some benefit in that. And it's important for us to accept the truth about ourselves. Don't get me wrong. The truth that there is something wrong with us. The truth that there is something wrong in some of our institutions. Accept the truth. Once we accept the truth, we can say, hey, what am I going to do to change that?
All right. Wow, this has been a powerful dialogue. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some
As we
information.
used to say back in the 70s, real heavy.
Oh my, yes. And so, first of all, I want to thank everyone for participating because it was kind of like a last minute thing I thought about doing, and I'm sending everybody the messages and asking, are you going to be able to participate? And even with Jasmine, I think I called her today. I was like, look, I'm doing a panel. Can you be part of the panel? And she said, yes. So I truly appreciate you all. I would love to continue these dialogues. I don't know what works for you all, monthly, weekly, because there's so much work that needs to be done. And it's like the time is now. And it's like if we keep pushing it off, we're never going to get to a point where we're coming up with maybe solutions that works for everyone. So you guys can, send me a message, tell me what you think about time. I'm thinking maybe every other week, because there's so much information that everybody has, and it's so helpful to everyone here. So I want to thank you all. I am recording, and once everything is downloaded, I will send it to everyone. I usually upload everything into the iRise group, and I ask you all to comment, talk about the works that you're doing in your respective communities. You have books, you guys, we have attorneys, mayor. I mean, we got so much power. It's like, we should, we should have right now our own hospital, our own, there are some Black-owned banks, but it's just, this panel is so powerful right now. It's like, we can rule the world. And so the thing is, it's like everybody's kind of in their own world, but until we have these type of discussions, nothing's going to ever change. So I truly appreciate you all. You guys are so awesome. I mean, you guys, I try to pick the smartest people I knew, so it was, of course, you all. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end it, but I will be, like I said, uploading it to iRise, and then I also have iRise by Jet, the recovery station, which It is on Amazon Fire TV, and then I'll do a premiere video so you guys can, see the whole recording again. So with that being said, I will let you all know if, we're going to do this again and how everybody feels about it. We'll try and keep it under an hour next time, but I know everyone had a lot to say. And for Troy, I'm sorry I called you Tony. I wrote it down.
Yeah, I called him Terry. I'm sorry,
It
man.
was
I'm
only
so
once.
sorry.
It was
I
only
just
once.
picked you on. You guys don't know.
But
This
you
is
know
so
what? You know
powerful
what?
to me.
I'll respond to Tony if you need me to. It's okay.
All right. But with that being said, you guys enjoy your rest of the weekend. And
Be
if we
safe.
do this again, which I would love to do it with you all, I had one lady who dropped out at the last minute. She's a mental health specialist. She's texting me like, "Are you guys almost done?" I'm like, "Yes." But we're gonna try and keep this going. Think about different types of questions you all have that we all can discuss because I'm gonna be honest, within the last hour, I'm trying to put some questions together, trying to send out emails. I'm trying to put together, the little bios on everyone, and I actually did that right before we started. So I appreciate you all, and we will be doing this again. And just like I said, keep in touch with me and let me know what days work for you all. And like I said, we'll try our best to keep it under an hour next time.
It's a
Thank you
pleasure.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Everybody,
Thank you.
you.
everybody be safe.
Thank
Be safe.
you.
Amen. Be safe.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
Leslie was there. No, no. I mean, did I just walk in? Um, I wanted you to listen to what we were, what she was doing. Yeah. Now, who you got? Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Mama. I'll let Judette know me and you were on. Well, apparently, I don't know if they're talking to me. Yeah, they heard us. You can hear you talking, Auntie. I'm in the meeting and too, and your mic is on. You can hear you. Why the lady? No. Hey, Aunt, do you mind turn off your mic? LOL. Who are you got? I'm asking who are they talking to? They didn't say Auntie Deborah, so it might not be me. So I'm gonna ask them. Huh? I don't know. I'm gonna ask them because she kept calling me. But then she goes, I can hear you talking. That's Destiny. So it must be me. I didn't know either. I'm gonna say that was Mama. Oh yes, she was. Oh, you can talk now. I'm off of it. Yeah, we weren't talking about anybody. Oh, and that's why I went like this. 'Cause I was gonna say, dang it, guys, talk long period of time. Shit, that I didn't. I'm just, but I'm gonna say that was you. Those kids.